What is happening, guys? So after our last reel review, we've had a couple of our subscribers ask us to please do a breakdown and look for a reel that we would think is best under R1000. So after doing some research, I've come up this evening with these two reels, the Penn Wrath 6000 and the Okuma Tomcat 8000. Just to put in perspective, we are looking at reels that are suited to rock and surf fishing, which is our primary facet of fishing. So for the reels to qualify for our reviews that we're busy doing at the moment, the reel needs to come in a size that could fit between a 9 foot, guys. I've got big numbers in my head here, and a 14-foot rod. So we're not going to look at reel ranges that only bring out reels between a 1 and a 5,000 that are primary SG reels and super light rock and surf reels. The reel needs to have a reel suited for an 11-foot rod and a reel also big enough suited for a 14-foot rod. So I know that the Tomcat comes in smaller size, then it moves up to the 6,000, the 8,000, they have a 10,000 and a 14,000. So from your drop shot right up to non-eds, you'd get a reel big enough. The Wrath also starts in the smaller sizes, then comes in a 5,000, which is a nice drop shot size, 6,000, which is beautiful for a edible 14-foot rod, and then the 8,000 where you could target some smaller non-eds. So that's pretty much how we've come up with a choice of reels. The Penn Wrath 6000, I have been had my hands on one. I've fished with a 5,000 and a mate of mine owns, so I've got a bit of knowledge on that reel. And then the Okuma Tomcat 8000. I haven't personally fished with one. I did fish with Dylan. If you go back to one of our videos from 2 or 3 weeks ago, he did Jonas Kafani one night, and I know he was using one of these, and the reel looked to handle quite well. So both these reels come in at 999 Rand, just under R1000. So we've pretty much made the mark you guys need to by a Rand. I haven't assembled the reels yet for good. The Wrath. Let's just start off the Wrath. The Wrath uses bushes on the one side, and then the Tomcat uses bearings on the sides, guys. Before we get into the bearings and the bushes, a lot of guys ask the difference, what's better to have bearings, better to have bushes. Bearings sound better to have, but not always, depending on the quality of your bearings. If you want bearings, you want good quality bearings, guys. You don't want rubbish bearings that are going to break after 2-3 turns. So in instances of reels where you on a budget, R1000 reel, bearings versus bushes, I think you're getting one and the same thing. Nice thing about bushes is they don't corrode, they don't rust. Unless you're getting full stainless steel, sealed bearings, I don't think it makes a difference which way you go. On that note, the Wrath is upgradable. There are a lot of videos on YouTube where you can go buy 2 bearings. It's going to cost you 30 or 40 bucks a bearing for a shielded bearing. Open the reel up, pop the bearings in if you prefer bearings. So for another, say 100 bucks, you could upgrade the Wrath to having bearings either side of the handle. What I'm going to do now is just assemble the 2 reels quickly. Obviously, all reels in this class under R1000 are going to have pretty much a handle that slots in on a shaft with a screw that you'll put in from the other side. You'll tighten the handle up to get the tension into the handle. Your more expensive reels have the female setup where you just turn and the handle spins on. Obviously 2-piece handle on the Tomcat. And we just keep turning. It does take quite a while on these reels, guys, and then it is fuss, nice and tight. We'll do the same for the Wrath. But I like to do, guys, on the budget reels, okay, the Wrath has got bushes, the Tomcat's got bearings. On the Tomcat, I'll take a little bit of Penn's marine grease and just put a thin layer on top of the bearing in case some salt water does get in the reel, just to protect that bearing for an extra couple of seconds before it gets through, and hopefully stop that water washing into your bearing. The Wrath's got bushes, so you don't have to worry about anything rusting. Obviously, bushes will wear down over time as a bearing will, but they can be replaced quite easily. And there we have it. The Penn Wrath, the Okuma Tomcat. before we're getting into reviewing one reel versus the other reel, one reel versus the other reel, I'm just going to run through things I do whenever I'm buying a new reel. If it costs under 1,000 Rand, okay, I haven't spent that much on a reel before, but even if I'd one day purchase a reel for 15,000 Rand, things that I'd look for to help me decide. I'm just going to use the Okuma to start. Okay, guys, so main things I look for is what I call spool wobble. So if you take the spool and feel the reel, you're going to put some pressure and move the spool back to forth. The last thing you want is a spool that's moving from left to right. It's going to put uneven balance on your drag washers when you're fighting a fish. So you're going to get a drag that's sticking loose. So you can see the spool, the slight flex in the spool. Please understand that any reel in this class is going to have it. There's no reel on the market in this class that's not going to have a bit of wobble in the spool. And then the pen's also got a slight wobble. Okay, if you put a bit more pressure onto the drag, put the drag down, the wobble should decrease a bit. And it has decreased a bit. So you're always going to get that little bit of wobble. The less wobble, the better off you are. Second thing I like to look at is the bail arm, construction of the bail arm. You don't want a thin, wiry bail arm made out of inferior quality materials that are going to bend over time. Do you understand that your bail arm is extremely important for your line lay? If this bail arm, if I had to bend it down and move it there, I'd get uneven line lay where my line would all be packing at the bottom of the spool or packing at the top of the spool. Not great for fishing. You want your line to be as line as you can. So Tomcat has quite a nice, it feels like it could be actually a hollow bail arm. I'm not too sure. I could be incorrect. So that feels quite nice. And the Wrath has a nice stainless steel bail arm there too. So bail arm wise, both seem good. Third feature I like to look for, the line roller. So what I'll do is I'll put my finger in, feel the line roller. And normally on these class of reels, they'll have bushes either side. It's not sticky. And also not sticky, so that's another good sign. As for my previous videos, rotor balance. I'll grab the rotor either side, give it a pull, slight movement. I think every reel in the world, besides your really top-end reels, are going to have a bit of movement. The Penn has a little bit less movement. The reason you want a nice balanced rotor that's not going to move from side to side, do you understand you've got your main gear in the reel and your rotor? If your rotor is moving over, it can start pulling the main shaft of the reel over, and then your gears are not going to line in the reel anymore. You're going to have gears, teeth touching at different places where they shouldn't be touching, and wear is that one, your gears down. Next feature I like to look for, flex in the reel itself. Most of the reels in this category are going to be some sort of plastic composite or graphite or whatever they're going to call it. They might have some fancy name, some marketing name for it. So what I'll do is I'll grab the base of the reel and actually put some force into the reel and see if there's any flex into the reel. That's more the rotor flexing. Okay, the Penn is got hardly any flex, which I do like. And the Okuma should pretty much be the same. They both got graphite bodies. The graphite bodies are super stiff, guys, which is good. Some of the main reason I've chosen these two reels, the other reels out there you'll find will have a lot of movement. If you're having a long day's fishing, you're getting stuck into a nice shoal of shad, the last thing you want, busy cranking them in, your reel bouncing like this the whole time. It's extremely irritating. If you're good hook into a few good fish over time, it starts spinning, you start getting stress fractures in the handle of the reel. Over time, that reel's going to get looser and looser. Being plastic, it's going to be pliable. So your reel's going to start, within a year or two, your reel's going to start bending almost to your thumb, which you don't want. So under pressure, you want your reel to hold a shape. It's going to save your gears and bearings on the reel. Next feature that I like to look for again, guys, as explained in my other videos, handle movement, left and right, horizontal handle movement. I don't want any play in the handle that way. If you look at schematics of a reel, you don't want any play like that because obviously, once again, the teeth of your gears are not going to line up. You're going to get excessive wear on the gears. So that looks good. And then no play that way. Moving on from that, the anti-reverse. Okay, once again, I didn't tighten it up. Okay, I know what I'm doing wrong here, guys. This reel, I only picked it up now. First time I'm picking it up. You can obviously normal way, and then for some reels have this. I'm not really a big fan of it. They have, so you can actually backwind if you want to feed line out and things like that. I'm not a big fan of this, but anyway, you click that over, and that's better. Then it's going to lock up. A lot of the manufacturers bring that out on some of their reels. There are places overseas and some guys that like fishing like that. And then the pen doesn't have that, so that should lock straight into place. Okay, so that's pretty much the features I like to look for on a spinning reel, especially a cheaper spinning reel. Those are the ways you can actually compare them apart. Internally, they're all pretty much going to be the same. I know the Tomcat has a brass gear, and if I'm under correction, the Wrath has an aluminium gear. They don't say anything about having a brass gear, which they would have marketed, so it'll have aluminium gear in there. Okay, so that's pretty much the features you want to look for, things you want to look for when you're buying a reel, any reel, especially on a budget end of the side. So let's do a little comparison between these two reels we've got on the table here. The Tomcat comes with 6+1. Whenever they're talking about reels with 6+1, 7+1, 35+1, or whatever it comes down to, the bearing count in the reel. Bearing counts, as I've mentioned before, are not super important. I'd rather have a reel with 2 or 1 good quality bearing than a reel that I know I can buy offline. I can't mention the websites, you can buy them from China. I can get a reel for 300 Rand with 13 bearings. Guys, those bearings you're getting are ridiculously pathetic. So bearing count, not a big thing. But the Okuma does come with 6 good bearings in it, which is nice. And the +1 is always the roller bearing that they're talking to. So most reels will have a +1 referring to the roller bearing. The pen comes with 2 stainless steel shielded bearings, and the +1, the roller bearing. As I said, the pen does have bushes either side of the reel handle, which can be replaced with bearings. I know a friend of mine's reel that I fished with, he replaced his once his bushes wore, and it makes the reel feel like $1 million compared to what it did before. So it's something I'd suggest if you get the Wrath, maybe once those bushes wear out, get to the fishing tackle shop, order them online and pop 2 bearings in. It's really, really simple. If you want, we can actually show you, you can go through it sometime, literally 10-minute job, and you can put bearings in your reel. So some other features, I'm going to pick up, let's just have a look at this reel. What I do like about the Okuma, it's got my favorite shaped handle. I like the egg-shaped handle, guys. I'm a big fan of the egg-shaped handle. It fits into my hands quite nicely. The reel feels smooth as your girlfriend's legs. Pen, also a nice shaped handle, a bit skinny for me, but actually quite beautifully shaped. I think the smaller anglers and the junior anglers and stuff might actually really enjoy that. It actually fits quite comfy in the hand. And also, got that pen feel, a bit more of a geary feel, but that every pen on the market does. The chunky gears will always have that feel to it. The pen handle, I don't actually know what it looks, it feels like it's some sort of aluminium. It's made out of, it's constructed quite nicely. Looks extremely strong. And the Okuma as well. Some sort of alloy, this as well, it's hollow. I think that one feels quite solid, it is solid. And that feels like a hollow handle. Also extremely strong. Moving over to drag. Also a big deliberation we've had before. I can tell you that the Okuma 8000 comes with 35 pounds of drag, which is a crazy amount of drag for a reel in this class and this size, more than you'll ever need. The pen comes in at 20 pounds, which sounds half, it's more than enough, guys. 20 pounds for edible fishing is more than enough. I don't think anyone edible fishing, unless you're popping off the rocks in Indonesia, targeting GTs, off of Natal, targeting wahoos and cooters, or off of PE, getting into some yellowfin tuna, you're going to need anything more than that. Rock and surf fishing, I think if you're fishing for edibles, which understand your cob, your pig nose, those sort of species have extremely soft mouths. If you're putting 20 pounds of drag on that hook, 9 times out of 10 you're going to end up pulling the hook and tearing holes through their mouth. It's nice to have some extra drag when you're holding a silver or a black, something that you know has got some nice platy mouth with some thick jaw structure. So if your hook is in there, you can put a lot of drag onto them and be able to hold that fish. But 20 pounds, I promise you, will do the trick every day of the week for you. Okay, moving on from there, gear ratios. I'm going to have to just look at the box quickly. I don't actually know. The pen doesn't actually even say what gear ratio it has on it. And I'm happy about that because in my eyes, it makes no difference. The Tomcat says it has a 4.8 to 1, guys. That means, if those of you who don't know what gear ratio and reel actually means, every time I rotate the handle 360 degrees like that, the spool, the rotor will spin 4.8 times around the handle. Now, the reason I'm saying for rock and surf fishing, gear ratio doesn't play an integral part in my eyes. I understand your guys that are popping, throwing plugs, vertical jigging, you want reels with high gear ratio so you can really get that lure to scamper along the surface or get that jig up as quickly as you can. On the other hand, your bass fishermen, if you American bass fishermen, the guys fish bass in South Africa, they'll have Pacific reels. They'll have a 5.3 to throw a crankbait. If they're throwing their soft baits, I'll have maybe a 3.8 or 4.2 to 1. So they're keeping that constant speed. They know their crankbait's swimming at the right speed. Rock and surf fishing, I don't think makes a difference. We're putting in big casts, lots of distance. Most of the time, we're losing half the line on our reel with the cast. So if I'm 100 meters out, if I've waded 50 meters out, put in a cast of 80 meters, walk back to the beach, I've probably lost 200 meters on my line that I'm busy holding on. So at that time, my spool's at a third or half. So 4.8 might mean that I'm putting in 12 inches of line when my spool's empty. By the time the line's in front here, one turn 4.8, I might be putting in 20 inches of line. So in my eyes, it doesn't play a big part, guys. As long as it's somewhere balanced, you don't want a reel that's too slow or extremely fast, a high-speed reel for rock and surf fishing in my eyes. So I'm not going to go too much further on gear ratios on reel. I hope that helped you understand a bit. Last one, the lower your gear ratio is, the less power you have to put through the reel. Works same as your bicycle gears. If you're going up a hill, you hit your bike into the lowest gear and you just pedal slow and your bike will go up the hill. Same as gears in a car, gears on any mechanical motor or anything that's mechanical, it works exactly the same with the reel. So you will find your big non-end reels will have slower gear ratios, so you don't have to put that much torque through the reel when you're trying to retrieve line and when you've got some tension on the line. But for rock and surf, that's pretty much about it from gear ratio wise, guys, from our side. Other than that, looking at the reel, I see the pen does come with, I don't know how well you can see it, line indicators. It's quite a nice thing to have on a reel. You'll see on the spool there, you'll see little lines like that. Once you know your reel really well, you'll know if a fish is running, you've got half your line left. So pretty much it's a third of the spool, 2/3 of the spool, and a full third of the spool. It's also nice if you're fishing backing and you know this reel holds, say, 400 meters of 40-pound braid. So some of the guys will put 100 meters backing on and then put 300 meters of braid on top of that, so they've got their full 400 meters. So they know when they get to that line, listen, they're close to having to replace their braid and things like that. So your line indicators are quite nice. The pen also has the little rubber, blue rubber you can see there. Let me turn that out the way for you guys on the spool. Little silicone rubber. It's something the guys have introduced into the spinning reels with the implement of braid. That just helps your braid bite into the spool. I know when I started the spinning reels with braid, they didn't have those little, they call them braid ready reels now. It's just a nice smooth spool. You'd spool up your line, after 2 or 3 throws, you'd hook a nice fish and all your braid would spin on the reel instead of your drag going. So your braid would just spin like this and melt into itself and do all sorts of crazy things. So that's what they have put into the reels now to stop that braid spin on the reel. It helps it bind in a bit. The Okuma doesn't have it, but it's got the little ridges which are going to help your braid bite into your reel. It doesn't have the little silicone rubber around it. Something you can do if you don't feel confident that's going to hold, but I'm sure it is going to hold. What I would do is put a thin layer of insulation tape or 2 wraps of insulation tape around the reel just to let that braid bite into the reel. So no, I'm not going to get any braid slippage on my reel. Another thing Okuma thought was quite clever to bring out, they call it cyclonic airflow rotor. So what they're saying is that their rotor, when you're spinning, so I'm trying to get it to spin here, And you can actually feel a bit of a draft. They're quite clever guys. It's actually pumping air with the design, some aerodynamics designs that go on there. So it helps dry your reel off while you're fishing. So if you are fishing in the rain or your reel gets splashed, after reeling in, that bit of air actually helps dry your reel off a bit quicker to help stop corrosions, help stop water penetration and things like that. Don't have to be too concerned if any of these reels with a bit of surface splash on them. They both have graphite bodies, which aren't going to rust. Both spools are aluminium, so they're not going to rust. Both feature felt drag washer systems, as any reel in this class will. You're not going to get carbon washers on a reel in this class, guys. Unfortunately, nothing wrong with the felt though. I prefer it for some aspects of fishing. I know the Tomcat, when you get the bigger reels, the 14,000, 16,000, they have dual drag for stopping those bigger fish along the way. Other than that, guys, I don't know what else there is pretty much to say about these reels. I think they're both well priced. I think this is going to come down to a difference of opinion. If you like the Penn Wrath or you like the Tomcat, on paper, the Tomcat with the 6+1 bearings sounds better. It's got more drag. The Wrath to me just seems a bit more meatier. I think the gear feels a bit more solid on this to what the Tomcat does. That's my personal perspective. So I don't think I can choose a winner tonight, guys. I'm not going to say buy this one or buy this one. It's going to come down to a preference of choice. I think the Tomcat looks a bit prettier in my eyes, but that's my personal preference. Nothing wrong with the Wrath though, but I think because it looks like the Saragossa, but maybe I'm learning to like it. Anyway, guys, so there are the two reels. So if you are looking for a reel under R1000 to suit most aspects of rock and surf fishing, have a look at these. I know Moria do have them both at 999 Rand at the moment, which is probably the best price around. I know I've seen them online in other places, well over 1,000 Rand, up to 1,200 Rand. Please remember the 999 is for the 8,000 and the Wrath 6,000. It might exceed 1,000 Rand if you're looking at the 8,000 Wrath and the 14 or 16,000 Tomcat. Anyway, guys, I hope that was informative. If there's anything I left out, I do apologize. Hit the comments. Please remember, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us do videos like this and bring you information that you need. So if you've got $1,000 and you're looking for a reel, Christmas is around the corner. Put one of these on your list and hopefully you're good and Santa brings you one. Until later, guys. Cheers.